Hi, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen What? A couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seeing culturally relevant movies. But this is the new added experience. You haven't seen what? The Crime Edition. Dun dun dun!
Do we need to get the guy who writes all the crime show music, like for Law and Order and everything, to compose a theme for us?
I mean, the dun dun dun, doesn't that just work?
I'm sure he'd do our podcast title.
I'm sure.
Yeah, no problem.
He has nothing else better to do if he's even alive. So, hi, yeah. So, normally this is a married couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seeing culturally relevant movies. But
Specifically crime movies.
Specifically crime movies for this one. But
it'd be a crime
not
to miss
do
this
Clue.
podcast.
You're funny. It would be a crime not actually to do Clue. And it's a very good segue / bridge episode, I think, to go ahead and do Clue. It was also my birthday pick, even though this is going to be aired later on in the year when it's no longer my birthday, but this is still my birthday pick. So this is the one that I wanted to do, and I think needs and is deserving of more attention that it gets.
It's also
especially with millennials, because they don't know this movie.
No, and if they only know, if it comes out, if it gets made, if they only know the upcoming supposedly Ryan Reynolds version, then they're really missing out, because they need to know this movie before they know the redo.
Exactly. So Clue was in 1985. It was released, and it is, wow, I think like a lot of movies that I really love, like Midnight Madness and Legend of Billie Jean, it was one of those fillers on cable that, you know, didn't do so hot at the time and was just played all the time on cable.
Was it Mrs. White with a rope? Hey! Mr. Green with a pipe?
I didn't do it!
Colonel Mustard with a wrench?
I'm only an innocent.
Miss Scarlet with a candlestick?
Practice makes perfect.
Professor Plum with a gun?
What has it got to do with me?
Mrs. Peacock with a knife?
What?
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Clue. It's a comedy with 3 different endings. Who done it? Depends on where you see it. Rated PG.
Starts Friday, December 13th at a theater near you.
There really wasn't any swearing that I can think of. No unnecessary body parts shown. Just a little cleavage.
I was going to say almost.
A little cleavage, but, you know, considering that it was 80s, that's pretty tame for that time period.
Yeah.
Nothing really horrible or awful or super dated about it. And I would just watch it a ton. So much so that I had the VHS, that it came out on DVD, and I had the DVD. I used to fall asleep to it all the time because I knew the words, which is very important because I was an insomniac. So the fact that I could actually sleep, this was one of like 5 movies that I knew backwards and forwards that I could sleep. And really, it's only one of my top 2 movies that I would watch consistently all the time. I never get tired of it. I could watch it for the rest of my life every single day and only have this movie to watch, and I would be perfectly fucking fine.
It's the one movie that is always on your iPad.
Always. It is always on my iPad. It has to always be on my iPad. It is the one movie if I'm having a bad day, if I'm having a bad anything, if I'm having a great day. And quite frankly, the older I get, the funnier that shit is. And the more I can appreciate the comedic timing of Tim Curry and Madeline Kahn and Eileen Brennan, Leslie Ann Warren, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Martin Mull. I mean, just the more, and Colleen Camp, just the more I really appreciate all of their comedic timing. Honestly.
Yes. There's not really...
It's star-studded.
Truly. Yeah. Truly. And there's not a weak link in the bunch. Nobody is not pulling their comedic weight. You know, you don't watch it and go like, oh yeah, if they would replace them with someone else, that would have really made it. But I feel like everyone in this, and the more you watch it, because I probably would not have watched it as much as I have if I hadn't met you. And we've watched, like, the times when things didn't download properly, and we've watched it on the airplane several times. And there are little subtleties going on in the background. Each of these actors is such a great physical performer that there are things going on all of their faces or with their bodies throughout that you can watch if you just focus on one character each time you watch it, you can see all these amazing little acting techniques that they're using to increase that comedy. And so each one has a distinct personality and is genuinely funny.
Right. So unlike your birthday pick, UHF,
We are not talking about that.
Unlike your birthday pick,
This is aged well.
This is a complete. It has aged well, and it's completely rewatchable. About a bajillion times rewatchable. You can watch this how many ever times you want. If you don't own it, if you've never seen it, you should watch it. It's amazing.
I would agree, which is why, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this a little more later, but I can't understand, honestly, why it did so poorly. And it's not just about the multiple endings. The reviews of it are that it's not funny and that there's nothing interesting about it. It's not original. I don't get it. Now, I have to admit, the more of Roger Ebert's reviews I read as I get older, the less I agree with him.
Cranky pants. Sorry.
Well, it seems like he often, and this isn't just about art house films versus mainstream movies. I find that even the sort of mainstream stuff he reviews, the stuff he likes, I don't like as much. And the stuff that he, even though he did like Electric Dreams a lot, so he gets a thumbs up for that. But the stuff that he
was a big music video. Like, seriously?
And
you're going to go ahead and compare Electric Dreams to Clue?
I'm not.
That's not fair.
I'm not comparing in the least. I was just saying that Ebert occasionally got it right, but often he did not. And this is one of those where a lot of the reviewers that I've read just don't make any sense to me, quite honestly, because I think it's comic genius.
2 out of 4.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that actually when we were doing research for this, a lot of the comments afterwards, and I really have to say, director Jonathan Lynn really freaking took it because, and we'll talk about it more, but he basically lost Roxanne, the movie, because Clue bombed, was considered a bomb.
Ouch.
So 10 days, like right before he was getting ready to go ahead and film and be on the set of Roxanne, he got fired.
Who directed Roxanne? I don't remember
I don't remember off, but Jonathan. And so it's weird because, you know, it is such a cult movie, and all the actors like Leslie Ann Warren and Martin Mull and Michael McKean and even Tim Curry are sort of like, Clue has this cult following that we just never really knew happened. And so over the last, 20 years, it's really been this crazy revival regarding Clue. And 3.5 years ago, it celebrated its 30th, or like just a little over 3 years ago, really. It celebrated its 30th anniversary, and they had a lot of cool things happen and come out with the anniversary. And it's interesting. A lot of them talk about the fact that now more than ever, they're recognized for Clue. Mm-hmm. And even Jonathan Lynn teaches film classes, and people come up to him and he's like, they're like, my favorite film of all time is Clue. And this is my favorite film of all time. Point blank, period. I have other ones that I love, but this is one. The more I watch it, the more it's just reinforced. It is my favorite. It is the one for me. Period. I mean, there are greats like Godfather and Gone with the Wind and all of those pieces. But for me, this does comedy in such a smart way. It's smart. It's physical. It's crime. Like, why wouldn't I love it? It's crime driven. Who done it? Like, come on. This is like every Nancy Drew novel in my head come to life. It's like a freaking old mansion. Seriously, like I'm geeking out a little bit. This is me geeking
Drew.
out. But it's true. It's like you have to think about the time frame and how old I was. I was probably 9 when I saw this movie because I didn't see it in the theater. And so I was big off Nancy Drew and all those pieces. So.
Did you see it at a sleepover?
No, I'm pretty sure I saw it on cable. I'm pretty sure I just saw it on cable.
Because apparently I was reading that because it was one of those that was cheap to get because it wasn't successful and it was played all the time as filler, that it was a staple at sleepovers. And since we've had this conversation about you seeing a lot of things you shouldn't have at
April Fool's
sleepovers.
Day. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, this is not one that would be offensive at a sleepover.
No, this one's great. I don't know that they would get all of the jokes, being young, like communism is just a red herring.
Communism is just a red herring.
Communism was just a red herring.
No, they would get some of the broader physical humor. But I can see why. I think the reason some people might not like it or didn't like it at the time was because some people find it hard to enjoy a film that is more like a play. And this one is very play-like in its exaggerated acting and the limited sets, which forces the screenplay to be very good, forces the acting to be good, forces the director to be good, because you're working with such limited space. You can't distract people with big set pieces or sweeping vistas. You have to use, and even though the sets of the house are great, you have to use what's available, and it's not much. And so everything else has to be good.
No, but
that's
and it's
not
like
for everybody.
It's comedic one-liners after one. Like they're
the script is
literally
great.
the script and the interplay and the cadence of it is amazing. So let me just give my synopsis before we get like completely like off because you didn't write one, did you?
No, I this was such your movie that you have even taken over some of the research that is normally mine. So synopsize away.
All right. So first of all,
Synopsize me.
I wrote Clue, the best movie on the face of the earth, literally. And then I went back and I thought about it.
Somehow I don't see that in the description on Netflix.
I don't fucking care. It's my synopsis. I can do whatever the fuck I want with it.
Exactly.
See, now you're making me curse because you're messing with my clue. 6 strangers go to the mansion because someone is blackmailing them. People start dying and shenanigans ensue, which I think is a perfect description of this movie.
Shenanigans, definitely.
Shenanigans. But now to the hardest part ever. Can you pick a favorite quote? I had such a freaking hard time.
I did too. There's
so many. Wait, hold on. Before we even like talk about it, I am like pulling some up. Like first of all, Madeline Kahn has some of the best lines ever.
She did get a lot of the best one-liners.
So like Colonel Mustard says, "You lure men to their deaths like spider with flies." And she says, "Flies are where the men are most vulnerable." Colonel Mustard, right. And then
or life after death is as improbable as
sex after marriage. Exactly.
Now that he's dead, I have a life.
Mrs. White. He was deranged. He was lunatic. He didn't seem to like me very much. He had threatened to kill me in public. Miss Scarlet, why would he want you to kill you in public? Wadsworth, I think she meant he threatened in public to kill her. Oh, and was that his final word on the matter? Being killed is pretty final, wouldn't you say? I love Mrs. White. I love Madeline Kahn in this movie.
Well, and of course, one of her best lines in the movie was ad-libbed. It's the T-shirt you were wearing.
Flames on the side of my face, big heaving.
It's the wispy, airy way that she says that one.
Yes, it is.
Flames.
And if you watch that scene, Martin Mull is in the back trying not to die, and crack up entirely and break character.
Because he looks completely bewildered.
Well, he looks really bewildered, and I'll make a production note right here. He looks really bewildered because Jonathan Lynn ran a really tight set in regards to the script. So there was really no deviating from the script at all. In fact, that was one of the only ad-libs that he allowed, was Madeline Kahn doing that specific scene. And it's because it was Madeline Kahn. So yeah.
So they would have hired him to make Solo because they were really unhappy with the ad-libbing that was going on
I don't. That's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. I'm not letting you hijack Clue with Solo. There's way too much to discuss. But then there's 1 + 2 + 2 + 1 + 1 + 2. Wait a minute. I'm shouting. No? Okay. You're looking at me like
no,
I'm crazy.
I'm just listening to your, as you repeat, you're doing your own shadow cast of the film. It's like you could do the whole film beginning to end by yourself.
Yeah.
You could do the Wadsworth recreation at the end, but you'd just do full movie.
I probably could. These are truths. These are not lies.
But what I would love to see is you playing Wadsworth, playing everybody else.
I could do it.
I know you could.
Miss Peacock's here. Professor Pumas here. Yeah, you're welcome. It's so bad. You're dying. Why are you dying? You know I can do this. So what's bad is that I've now seen it so many times. I have become that person when watching it. I cannot help but say said lines.
Yeah, you don't even realize you're doing it.
I don't even realize I'm doing it. I am just saying it. I'm not even truly paying full attention because I don't pay full attention to most movies, but I know it so backwards and forwards. I can literally recite the lines to the movie. And poor Parry is sitting there, and I maybe have done this so many times that he's tuning me out effectively, and I'm literally apologizing because I recognize that for the past 10 minutes, I've just been repeating the lines over and over and over again.
It was actually helping put emphasis on certain areas so that I would take notes. So that was actually helpful in this situation. Had we been in a theater, it might not have been so great.
Listen, I would die to see this in a theater. I would die. Like, we saw a shadow cast a couple of years ago at MegaCon, where I was dressed as Mrs. White and Parry was dressed as Mr. Green, just saying.
I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife.
And it was just only... Were we dressed up that day? No, we weren't.
No,
but I wore this shirt.
Yes.
I wore the Mrs. White flames
much
on the side
to
of my
their pleasure.
Face. Yes, and I was repeating every single word as they were shadow casting. Literally, if a character didn't know the words that they were about to say, I am mouthing them so they could look over and say the words.
You were the teleprompter.
I was the teleprompter.
The cue card.
I was. Anyway, so what's your quote, honey? What's your favorite quote and clue that you think sums it up?
2 corpses, everything's fine.
That's a pretty good one.
Although I have to say that the line that sets it in its period, and because there is so much reference to politics throughout, or the politics of the period, I really liked Hoover's on everyone else's phone. Why shouldn't he be on mine? And communism is just a red herring. Which that one's a little too obvious, but it's a great line. But the Hoover line, I didn't really find it funny the first time I heard it, but when I watched the film again later, it was like, oh yeah, J. Edgar Hoover. Yes, Hoover. It's great.
I know. What's the, does FBI make a habit of cleaning up after multiple murders? Wadsworth says, yes. Why do you think it's run by a man called Hoover? Exactly.
Well, and that's also what makes the acting so important in this film, is that a lot of the lines in lesser comedic mouths would not work.
Oh, and let's just talk... There's so much. Oh, so I guess if no one knows the premise of this movie, maybe we should talk about that for a sec. So literally, it's exactly as the synopsis says. 6 folks are getting blackmailed. They go ahead and they go to this mansion and off Route 41. And in New England, that's where it's being set.
Which is a real road, apparently.
Which is a real road. Wow, you did do your research. Good job. Good job.
Even though you told me not
Hill
to.
House off Route 41. And
but they seem to have to drive through Griffith Park in Los Angeles to get there. So I guess it was the scenic route.
Whatever. Really?
Well,
really?
I only...
You know, Griffith Park is in like every freaking movie wherever they're going up a hill.
And the only reason I know it is because I watched, all that late 70s, early 80s television. And so Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, Knight Rider.
They're all there, okay?
Yes, A-Team. They all are in Griffith Park.
All right. So don't take the piss out of Clue. Thanks.
No, that
moving on with
only
you.
that scene in the beginning.
Moving on with you. Anyway, so they all go to this house where they're going to confront essentially their blackmailer. And then all of a sudden, people literally start dying, like one after another, after another, after another, and they're still trying to figure out who did it. And you meet these cast of characters who have a pseudonym, like Mrs. White, Miss Scarlet, just like the board game. And so, yeah, they're just trying to figure out who and what. And then there's all these other additional characters that keep coming in and keep getting killed. And at the end, it's revealed who does it.
Yeah, this show is all about spoilers. So,
No. No.
Well, what I will say is that this is a send-up and a tribute in many ways to murder mystery whodunit films of the past and books. I mean, Agatha Christie, is one of the really big ones, and this is actually very similar to 10 Little Indians.
Yes.
And there are a number of references to that film in this with the dinner guests and, all of the guests start dying off. And there's actually was a parody of that style called Murder by Death, which is of that same type of humor, making fun of that style of Agatha Christie, or sort of the old British murder is what it is, with the big house and the butler and the stormy night, and all of those elements are very much a part of that style. And Eileen Brennan is actually in Murder by Death, so it's a nice little connection there. But I'm not going to go too deep into production notes. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yes, and so my quote was actually, Tim Curry, who plays Wadsworth the butler, right? What do you do? I buttle. What does the butler do? The butler is... Sorry. I really couldn't quote this movie. So he says, he screams, actually, "We're trying to figure out who killed him and where and with what." Which is exactly what the Clue, the board game, is about.
Yes.
It literally sums up exactly the whole objective of Clue, the board game, and Clue, the movie.
Yeah, and yet they were able to write an amazing script around that, unlike Battleship.
You have sunk my battleship.
Excellent! Yeah!
Battleship sucked.
They did work in
Real
the premise
bad.
of the game, they just didn't do it well.
It's bad. It was really bad. So anyway, that's my quote, only because I felt like that was the most appropriate quote. I mean, quite honestly, the whole interplay with Leslie Ann Warren and Tim Curry, Mrs. Scarlet, and Wadsworth. 1 + 2 + 2 + 1 + 1 + 2. Yeah, I can't even with that. Like, that's one of my most favorite parts as well.
That's the quote. I'm putting the 1 + 2
No,
+
you
2.
can't put 1 + 2 + 2 + 1 + 1 + 2 + 1.
Yes.
1 + 2 + 1 + 1 + 2.
I think, yeah, well, we'll discuss this off the air.
We will? Okay. I think it's better to put the other quote because it's really more all-encompassing. Although those
Not
who
as
know
intriguing.
it... Okay, 1 + 2 + 2 + 1. Or is it 1 + 2 + 1 + 1?
I was counting on my fingers
But if it was
at that
like
point,
that, it would
so.
be 1 + 1 + 2 + 1, not 1 + 2 + 1 + 1. Yeah, and then they keep going. Sorry.
Yes. And of course, the gun still has a bullet in it. That was an obvious joke. But and I don't always like slapstick.
But that's amazing.
But it works for me in this too. So
I feel like this is like the best of Who's on First. Like, I really do. I think this whole entire movie is literally a Who's on First, just back to back to back to back jokes and one-liners, and they're hysterical.
Well, and again, it takes a hell of a cast working well together to do that, because there have been ensemble casts of this caliber in other films who were not able to pull off the type of comedy that they were trying to do. Mars Attacks is a prime example of that. No one is funny in that movie, and they're all funny actors that are in it, but they have no chemistry together in that. No one is working well together in there. And so this one, everyone, I don't know if anyone hated each other on this set. Oh, did they? Because they all worked beautifully together.
So I guess this really leads into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
You remembered.
I did remember to whistle this time. I almost had to write myself a note. So I think we sort of hashed out the good pretty much, other than the fact that I can quote this entire movie. But the good of this movie is that, Parry?
The perfect cast.
Yes. Agreed. It really is.
Tied together by a perfect script. Too.
Correct. The ensemble cast, the delivery, and the ability for everybody to really stick to the script. That's also difficult. When you're dealing with, they said at one point it was like herding puppies, Leslie Ann Warren. Like poor Jonathan Lynn was like just herding literally all the entire time.
Well,
but
yeah, that many comedians, they all want to ad-lib.
Exactly. But nope.
I also think part of the brilliance of it is that they're all unlikable characters. None of them are characters that you necessarily want to spend any time with, and they're all potential villains. And villains are always having the best
love the
time.
villains.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that villains always get the best lines, the best chances to show off their acting. So I feel like the fact that all of them are...
Well, no, Wadsworth wasn't a villain, technically.
What about ending number 3?
Okay, no. But I'm saying, in the general gist of the writing of the movie,
yes,
Wadsworth wasn't a villain. Yeah, Tim Curry's performance.
But he's a villain playing that he's not the villain, which is even
He's a
more
little snarky.
But that's what I'm saying, is that no one in here, okay, likable, they're not lovable. No one in here is lovable. They might be slightly likable, but they've all done things wrong.
Oh, no, I love Mrs. White.
But no one is here because they're innocent.
Correct.
They've all done something wrong,
Yes.
supposedly.
Yes.
And so, again, the fact that they're all a bit shady is what makes... They're all playing
Is that
these...
why I like it so much?
Yeah.
I wonder.
Because no one is a hero in here until... We have a hero scene at the end, in ending 3, where Mr. Green is heroic, and yes, he's the hero of that ending.
No one's really naive either.
But even
no one is... It has to play the straight man, so to speak.
Yeah, no one has to play a complete moron, even
No.
though Michael McKean plays brilliantly the accident-prone...
Yes.
Just little things like when he leans against that table and it collapses. Or just how he, throws his drink up in the air when the bell goes. Just little physical humor like that. I had forgotten he's that good at that kind of thing.
So good.
Because seeing him as...
Chuck.
Yes.
And Better Call Saul.
He is so much the Chuck character that he's one of those who you forget that he was David St. Hubbins in Spinal Tap. And, that he is comedic because
I'll definitely forget that because I haven't seen it yet.
Because he's such a dick in Better Call Saul.
He is.
And I have started using the word chicanery because of that.
Jeez. All right, so let's talk about the bad, I guess. Is there bad? I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. We both have the same good. Bad. I mean, I have one if you really need to reach.
Yeah, I feel like the bad was on the part of the marketing.
Yes.
I don't...
We're on the same page.
I don't have a lot in the film itself that I consider bad. There's a lot of people who would, at least at the time. But I feel like my bad is... Maybe they played the dog poop humor just a little longer than I would prefer, because I found that a little bit base in comparison to a lot of the rest of the humor, but they don't go on too long. But I think that the fact that they tried to market the multiple endings and just didn't do a good job of the multiple endings, which we need to explain that for people who don't know how this works.
Yeah. So we can actually do a side right here. So there were 3 actual endings filmed, and each theater would get a different ending. So the theory was that everyone would love the movie so much they would go to another theater and they would see a different ending. But, that's not really how movies worked back then. And there were a lot of blockbusters coming out at the time. So the problem is that you didn't get to see the comedic awesomeness of the other 2 endings. And I think that's a really... and I think you're agreeing with me entirely. That's a real big downfall in this, is because you just didn't get to see Tim Curry run around like a fucking idiot 3 times trying to re-explain what the hell happened, as well as the cast just performing some of the best lines. So can you imagine somebody not seeing flames on the side of my face? Like, forget it. Like, that was one of the endings. So if you were in that theater and you got, ending A, and the Mrs. White diatribe was an ending B, then you didn't get to see it. And that's a crime in and of itself.
Yeah, I feel like, and especially at the time, in the mid-'80s, you would have to not only pay to go see the movie once, you would then need to drive to another theater to see it. And apparently...
I don't remember theaters being that close.
No, there weren't that many theaters close together at the time. And... they apparently now, for those who don't know, those who are prior to internet, pre-movie phone, if you even remember that, we're talking.
Welcome to Movie Phone. Please select your movie. Press 1 for. Superman.
Right.
Press 2 for.
Well, it was more like press 1 for The Jackal.
Yes.
Press 2 for Starship Troopers.
Oh, yes. Very good. 90s. Good job.
That's right.
You're a really good movie phone person,
Thank
you know?
you. Thank you. You think I should try and get a job with Movie Phone?
I think you should try to get a job with Movie Phone if it existed still.
I'm going to give them a call right now.
I'm sure.
Back in
on your
1995.
on your rotary phone. That was the other thing. Press 1. Oh, no, it's post-rotary phone.
Press 3 for RoboCop 3.
You're ridiculous.
Well, yeah, so you would, before that, and I actually have some of these.
Oh, you'd have to go ahead and go to the paper.
I was going to say, and I have some of these in storage, of course, is newspaper pages that would have all the movies that were
and
playing.
all the listings and all the times.
In fact,
do they still do that? I wonder.
You know, I haven't looked in a newspaper for
I haven't
movies
looked
in
at that
years.
section either, but I bet you they probably still do for the older folk.
Yeah, I was going to say as late as the mid-90s, I remember looking in the paper
Dunno.
for that. But, you know, and nowadays, if you buy old press kits, they'll have all of these different sizes of ads, and what those were for was clipping out and using and being photographed as a part of that newspaper page. So it would be cut out, pasted as a part of the page, photographed,
as part of the media,
made into a plate,
right.
made into the paper. And so that's what all those little things are for if you ever buy that old press kit. But
right.
But you'd go and you'd look, and apparently what they did was they actually marked which theaters were playing. I didn't know this until I did this research.
Yes.
I thought it was just by chance that you found it, but
no,
apparently
they finally went
it
back and marked it.
So that you, but then
because originally it was like no one knew.
But apparently one of the reviewers at the time said that they tried to confirm which ending went with which letter, and even the studio got confused and said maybe we've mixed this up, and so it was a big fiasco in terms of this idea.
Yeah.
It was
Get it together, marketing. Get it together.
It was an interesting idea that you would watch all three, but
that's not real. I mean, it's way smarter to have it how it is now.
It is.
Where it shows you all the three.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's one of those in hindsight things, because I first saw it this way on VHS, and I've only seen it this way. And honestly, after seeing all three, I would feel very cheated if I was only getting one of the endings.
Also, I mean, even on the DVD, they're like, oh, pick a ending at random. Mm-hmm. Fuck no, I'm not picking an ending at random. I want to see all three, because all three are genius. Hell to the no. Pick one at random. Delete that section, please, for the love. Like, just delete that option. No one wants to just watch one ending. You want to watch all three endings.
And I can imagine now
which loser's picking one ending.
Now I can imagine at the time if you did not know about this and you saw it, and then you were talking at the water cooler with someone else in the office who saw it. And
what do you mean, Mrs. Scarlett?
Right, and so that I can see where there could be arguments over who done it.
Ain't nobody doing that.
But it just didn't work that way. So I will say it's points for being ingenious and original. But it failed dramatically, and I think that they also did not market that properly. So.
Correct. So what's your ugly? Do we have the same one? Come on, pull out the same one. We're 2 for 2 right now.
That the fourth ending was cut?
No, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. There was a fourth ending. They did film it. Okay, so some sites are like, oh no, they didn't film it. But when you talk to the cast, they say, yes, we did film it, and that it was cut on the production floor, and it just was omitted because it didn't work.
Yeah, I want the special deluxe edition with that fourth ending.
Well, there you go, and that is my ugly.
Is that it's not available?
Is that this is some bullshit. This is a beloved movie. Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and all those other motherfucking movies can get special edition after special edition after additional commentary after additional commentary, but Clue can't get shit.
Even
UHF has the goddamn commentary.
Had like 700 deleted scenes.
So Jonathan Lynn approached Paramount right before the 30th anniversary and never got a response back regarding the commentary, because it was like, hey, don't you want to put the commentary on a new release?
Yeah.
No, they didn't respond to him. Some bullshit. Seriously.
That is serious bullshit.
Cult freaking classic with Tim freaking Curry. The man is still alive. Do the goddamn commentary. I know, my levels are high as hell. But it's true. Do the damn commentary. This is some bullshit before these people die. They're old. Two of them have already died.
Well, and I don't know if Tim Curry, it wouldn't be easy for him. He can still speak.
Yeah, he can still speak.
But not as, although he's still doing work. He's still working.
He had a stroke, and he's recovered since and is doing public appearances, and is still doing voiceover or voice acting, right? Yeah. Is what I gather.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah, so, while the man is still functional and alive and can help you with some of this or be a part of it somehow, please, and Jonathan Lynn, please, figure it out. God, Paramount, I'm calling you out. It's bullshit.
I thought maybe it was the fact that the only black character in the movie dies.
Most people, 7 of them die. I mean, I don't know what you're saying right now.
There was only one, and he does get to be a police officer.
He does,
but he dies.
I mean, the fact that there was a black police officer in
1954.
Exactly. I think that's pretty good. Hey, he probably wasn't going to last that long on the force anyway. Truthfully, not back then. I'm just being realistic. I'm not being an asshole. Anyway, we're at the point of production notes, and we're already long, and my production notes are super long. So, but some of it we already have talked about. So production notes with Joe? ?
Yeah, because you this is your movie, so you go for it.
Holy shit!
You're having the same issue I am when I'm geeking out about something. Is it's hard for me to reel in the details because I want everyone to know.
Fuck off! We already did so many of these details. So Clue was directed by Jonathan Lynn. Oh, I should say it's based on Cluedo by Anthony Pratt. He invented the board game in Birmingham, England. Waddington's first put it out in 1949, but currently Hasbro has the title for it, and they're about a gazillion different types of Clue. And he wanted to name it Murder, but they said no. So,
well, the Brits, they're just that's a little too
They said
forward.
No.
It's a little too direct.
Said no. So literally Clue and Ludo were put together. So Cluedo, Ludo in Latin means I play. And that's why we got Cluedo. In the United States, it just was shortened to Clue, which makes a whole lot of sense.
They tried to produce it, or it was bought sooner, but they couldn't produce it until later because materials were in short supply during World War II, yes.
Produced by Deborah Hill, screenplay by Jonathan Lynn, story by Jonathan Lynn and John Landis, Spies Like Us fame, music by John Morris, cinematography by Victor Kemper, edited by David Brethren and Richard Haynes, production company Gerber's Peters Company, Polygram and Deborah Hill Productions, distributed by Paramount. Release date was December 13th, 1985, running time of 97 minutes, budget was $15 million and made just a little bit less than that at the box office. So finally, IMDb gets 7.3 out of 10, although I think it should really be an 8. Critics say 59% on Rotten Tomato. Who the hell cares about the critics?
Sometimes I care.
Whatever. And then 86% of the audience loved it. 86%. That's pretty freaking good.
And that is definitely different than the numbers that you would have had in
1985
when it came out. Yeah, it's definitely grown with time.
Right. So some other crazy trivia. Each character's car matched their playing piece.
Mm-hmm.
So Colonel Mustard had a yellow 1950s Cadillac. Mrs. White had a 1950s MG TD convertible. Mrs. Peacock had a blue 1952 Packard Deluxe. Mr. Green had a green 1950s Plymouth. And Miss Scarlet had a 1946 red Lincoln Continental. And Professor Plum had a purple 1949 Pontiac Streamliner station wagon.
Why is the car stopped?
It's frightened.
So that was pretty cool. Also, their clothing was the opposite spectrum of the color wheel.
Opposite spectrum of
their actual player. So Miss Scarlet was wearing green.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Mr. Green
yeah.
was wearing a dark suit with a red tie. It was at the opposite ends of their actual
Miss Scarlet's coat thing she's wearing in the scene outside looks like she's wearing a costume of Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors. It's such a weird...
The cape, it's amazing.
It's strange the way it comes up behind her head.
So the deal with a lot of their costuming, and we can actually talk about it a little bit more, was that, especially for Leslie Ann Warren, it was corsets of that time. So for her, they had diagonal pieces of wood where she would rest on because she couldn't move. Her mobility was actually very limited.
I'm laughing only because it's horrific.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
So the mansion's actually a set. It's the same set used on the TV show Dynasty, otherwise known as the Carlton Hotel. The floor of the mansion mimics the game floor within Clue.
But it was built for Clue and then
Correct.
used on that show. Yeah.
Correct. So a couple of cast things that are very interesting. So Carrie Fisher was supposed to be Miss Scarlet, but rehab got her instead, like a couple of days before filming. Can you imagine? Like a couple of days before.
I can
It was the 80s.
I can picture it, but I think Leslie Ann Warren is amazing in the role.
Agreed. A little bit more of a sex pot. I don't know if I could picture Carrie Fisher as a sex pot.
Well, you know what it is that she plays the role sort of a little bit trashy, as is necessary for the madam that she is. And although I think Carrie Fisher could have pulled it off, the problem is, again, as we've talked about with typecasting, is in our minds, it's hard to see Princess Leia being a house madam.
Exactly. Yvette, for the role of Yvette, Demi Moore auditioned, Madonna auditioned, Jennifer Jason Leigh auditioned, but Colleen Camp, good for her. She went into the audition in a French maid costume, so she won it out.
And the male casting or the male director has admitted that
pretty much that her endowed cleavage really helped seal the deal.
Yeah, said it was very hard to ignore. So yeah,
and they worked it in. It was perfect.
Yes, it is worked in. And the joke is that some of the teenagers would watch the movie as well, would join the audience just for those scenes at least.
Right. So Tim Curry was the third choice for Wadsworth. Before it was Leonard Rossiter. I'm going to butcher this poor man's name, but he died right before production anyway. Rowan Atkinson, otherwise known as Mr. Bean, but he wasn't really well known in the United States, so they said, nah.
Yes, the Black Adder. I have a very cunning plan.
But Jonathan Lynn actually knew Tim Curry from when they were teenagers and they went to boarding school, so somehow that all worked out. Also, John Cleese was considered at one point for it.
Which is, I think he could have done it, but still, we just can't see Tim Curry, we can't see anyone but Tim Curry in the role.
No. No, I can't even see John Cleese. And I love John Cleese, and I can't.
Even though at one point I pictured him going, Rocky.
No.
But no,
I can actually separate those out very well.
He plays them so differently, and that's also the sign of what a good actor he is that his body language is so different in both of those roles, even though they're both in big mansions on rainy, stormy nights, and it could have been easily crossed into. He betrays neither of those characters in the other. They're very much their own distinct characters, and everything from his voice to his body movements are very distinct and individual. So it's actually very impressive. At no point did I want to start singing the Time Warp.
Exactly, because it's so different to me. Anyway. The final scenes where Tim Curry is running around like a crazy person actually landed him in the hospital. He had high blood pressure.
Oh, no.
And had to take medication for a week. Yeah, some craziness. The cast actually spent a lot of time in the billiard room, specifically Mr. Green. He spent a lot of time in the billiard room and just while they were on set filming other pieces. So that was cool. Not Miss Scarlet, not Leslie Ann Warren. She was not about that life because she couldn't move.
Oh, yeah, I guess she's not playing pool in heavy courses.
She's not. So Madeline Kahn and Brennan were friends, actually, from filming At Long Last Love in 1975. But Brennan actually just got out of rehab before she filmed Clue. And somehow that strained the relationship because apparently Madeline Kahn didn't want to talk to her about it or didn't know how to broach it with her. So it was really tense on the set between those two.
Was it because Brennan was still angry at Private Benjamin for getting her transferred?
I'm not really.
Benjamin.
Seriously.
We loathe it.
So the screenplay went through a lot of things too. So I feel like it's like sort of like kismet how this all came to be. So the screenplay initially, Tom Stoppard was approached and he worked on it for a year. Then he returned the money that he earned and said, I want to do this no more.
Which was very nice of him to give the money back.
And he gave the money back. But apparently Stoppard's like, okay, I know Jonathan Lynn, but I don't remember agreeing to doing this now. Like, he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, basically.
He has wiped it from his mind.
Exactly. Then apparently Stephen Sondheim and Anthony Perkins were gung-ho to go ahead and do the screenplay too. But they were asking some like outrageous number, and they were like, "Oh, hell to the no!" So
I'm sure that's exactly what they said.
That is exactly what they said. So really, at this point, John Landis was truly the director, and Jonathan Lynn was, just a part of this team, and they are still trying to figure it all out. And they hash it out themselves, and then Jonathan Lynn really started taking a stab with the script himself. But what happened was that John Landis ended up going to Spies Like Us.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jonathan Lynn had to step in as the director, too. So maybe that's exactly why everyone has to stick to the script, because Jonathan Lynn is the one who wrote it, and he's the one who's directing it. So that worked out very well. The set design was located in Paramount Studios in Hollywood. To decorate the interior sets, they actually had authentic 18th and 19th century furnishings that were rented from private collectors, including the estate of Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, there's a weird, bird diorama thing in one scene where I didn't notice it until we were just watching it this time. When they come running out from the kitchen, it's like this glass case with birds, taxidermy birds in it. It's really odd.
Random.
But it looks like something that would be, in the same collection as the Mutter Museum.
Random. Hill House, which is the mansion where Clue takes place, is both a reference to Shirley Jackson's 1959 novel, The Haunting of Hill House, as well as the last name of the movie's producer, Deborah Hill, who also did Halloween, who also did The Fog. Am I stepping on her toes?
No, but I was going to say that it was partially a real house on the exterior.
Correct. So the exterior shots and the ballroom scenes were filmed in the actual house that burnt down in a fire in 2005.
Yeah, apparently people actually went and put flowers at the gates after it burned down. So because it was a beloved house for many reasons, but yes, it is no longer with us. It was added on to with matte paintings to make it look much larger than it actually was, but yeah, it was actually a real place.
Yep. And so also Deborah Hill went on to produce Adventures in Babysitting, another one of my favorite freaking movies of all times. Big Top Pee-wee, The Fisher King, other things. And then I have a couple of things where they really go under cultural impact. So I'll let you have your production notes if you want any of them. I mean, we can talk about every single one of the actors who are just freaking amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so tough.
It is, because they're all remembered for many things, and I'm not going to rattle them all off. But there's some funny little things in here, like Madeline Kahn was in Blazing Saddles, and her name in that movie is Lily von Stupp. And at one point when Wadsworth says Stupping, I believe that was a direct connection to the name.
You were jealous that your husband was Stupping, Yvette. That's why you killed him, too.
And if you don't know who Christopher Lloyd is, I cannot help you. Let's see. We've spoken about Michael McCain.
If you don't know who Christopher Lloyd is, well, maybe people know Christopher Lloyd as Uncle Fester.
Or Doc Brown.
Or Doc. Yeah, or Doc Brown. Duh.
You know what? This is what IMDb is for, and so you go look him up. If you haven't heard of Christopher Lloyd, then maybe you need to go back under the rock you've been living under, but I'm not helping. But Martin Mull, little lesser known to some people, but he's been in a billion things. My favorite role for him is Mr.
Colonel
Mom.
Mustard.
I love him in Mr. Mom.
Colonel Mustard.
Yes.
Colonel Mustard.
Other than this movie,
Colonel Mustard.
My childhood favorite role for him that I will always remember him for is
Colonel Mustard.
I did not see this movie as a child. I didn't see this movie till I was in college, actually. A Student Government Movie Channel is where I first saw this movie.
Oh, boy, because it was cheap.
Yeah. So we rented, because we used to rent videotapes, all
Yeah, 'cause
VHS
it was
tapes
cheap.
that we would rent, and they would send them to us in a big box every month, and we would play them on the movie channel, and Clue was one of them that was, yes, cheap. So we would play it. I think we bought a copy of it and played it every month. But Martin Mull, by the way, also is a comedian, and he has a number of songs out there. One of them was included in my Awful Christmas album this year called Santa Doesn't Cop Out on Dope.
'Cause Santa doesn't cop out on dope.
Now, for those who think that the original was...
Don't listen to this shit, please.
For those who think the original version of that song was done by Sonic Youth, it was not. It was Martin Mull, and they covered him.
I have a couple. So two of the actors in Clue, who are smaller parts, were both part of musical groups. Can you name both of them?
Yes, actually. Leaving.
Yes.
Who, of course, is in another one of our favorite movies.
Flashdance.
Yes.
That's right. He has two acting roles. Well, at the time, apparently, he was so infamous for his antics on Saturday Night Live, as well as they're about to drop Fear, the group that he's with and still with.
Yeah.
Was about to drop a major album. So the studio really wanted Leaving to be in there. They thought it would be a draw.
Even though he sounds like Joe Mantegna.
It's so
throughout
weird.
This movie. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, what, is Criminal Minds on back there? That's just what kept coming into my head every time he opened his mouth. Did you see?
Really? You think he sounds like him?
It kept sounding like Joe Mantegna, yes.
Maybe it's because I keep playing Criminal Minds to go to bed.
But did you see the reference that yeah, you do. And both of these are bedtime movies for you.
They are.
Did you see the joke in the name with Mr. Body? Because since he died so soon, he would be leaving the film soon.
Oh, jeez. Well,
very punny, yes.
And then who's the other person who was in a musical group?
It's Jane Wiedlin.
Yes. And what musical group was she in?
The Go-Go's.
I am your singing telegram.
Okay, with your friend, Belinda Carlisle.
Yes.
Circle in the sand.
Don't you circle in the sand,
round
me.
And round.
Look, Andrea, I know you're listening, and I will never, no level of therapy is ever going to help me get over to tell the story quickly. I was very sick one day in high school. I could not get out of bed.
She doesn't even remember this. Let's have that conversation. It's not, so she wasn't doing it on purpose.
We often don't remember the worst things we do to the ones we love.
Oh, God. Give me a break and a half. Really? If playing Belinda... I'm going to say, hashtag first world problems. If Belinda Carlisle, Circle in the Sand, playing on repeat the entire day while you were sick and couldn't get out of bed to turn it off was the worst fucking thing that happened to you as a child... Go back away with your white privilege bullshit.
Okay, I know it's a first world problem, but
it is.
I'm still damaged. It still hurts.
It does. He like twitches. Twitches.
I cannot listen to that song.
You cannot listen to Belinda Carlisle in general. It's like all of a sudden he's afraid that the song is gonna come on. And no, we have not been drinking, or at least I haven't been drinking.
Heaven is a place on earth is also difficult because it was on that same album, but it's not as horrifically hypnotic as Circle in the Sand. Yeah.
Never-ending love is what we found.
So to move
if I die after you don't hear any more about this podcast, my husband has killed me. Police.
It's because my trigger, Circle in the Sand,
exactly.
was activated, and
I feel like that's
and I had to go on a killing spree.
Snapped moment. Circle in the Sand.
Yes, and Criminal Minds are like, what was his trigger?
Circle in the sand. It's true. I call you the Hulk for a reason. Well, because you know, nice people like Dr. David Banner. He's so nice and wonderful until something really pisses him off, and then he turns into the Hulk, and then he's like, Hulk smash. You want to mess with people I love with? Hulk smash. And that is my husband. He is Hulk smash. So not to me, but to like just everyone else who wants to get into the way. So the nicest, yes. So the nicest people should never, ever, ever really be pushed, because you don't really want to see what's on the other side. Just saying.
Well.
Anything else more Circle in the Sand?
No more Circle in the Sand.
Round and round.
But Wiedlin, she also was.
I am your singing telegram.
Yes. And
that was a gunshot.
And I knew she was familiar. And she also is in one of my favorite fun movies. She is Joan of Arc in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes, 1989.
Yeah, so I also have to note the scene when she knocks on the door or rings the doorbell. They do a cool shot of every cast member with a shaft of light across their face, and they turn to look at the door. But
you're singing telegram. Well, normally you can talk over me. Go ahead.
Yes. There weren't enough musical numbers in this, like in a chorus line, so there hasn't been enough for you to sing in here. So
I said, shake, rattle, and roll. I said, shake, rattle, and roll. Are we done with production notes or no?
I was trying to move forward with production notes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to note that I think that we don't always talk about the cinematographers and the composers, but I have to go down the list of some of the things that John Morris did here.
Okay, but that's under Soundtrack Smashes. What's wrong with you?
Well, can I do the cinematographer then?
Yes, do the cinematographer.
Okay, Victor J. Kemp has done some of those movies that even if they're not your favorites, they're ones you're going to remember. Stuff like Dog Day Afternoon, Slapshot, Oh God, The Final Countdown, The Jerk,
the
Xanadu,
Final Countdown.
Not to be confused with the Europe song, Xanadu, The Four Seasons, Mr. Mom, as we were just talking about, Cloak and Dagger, which is a movie I loved as a kid with Dabney Coleman, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, On Golden Pond. So, and also one that is not as memorable, except for its title, They Might Be Giants, which is actually what the band They Might Be Giants named themselves after. So I just think his body of work is exceedingly impressive. Oh, also European Vacation, lest we forget, and Justice for All. So some crime movies that we will be talking about in this version of the podcast.
Well, in this continuation.
Yes.
So while this might be one of the first episodes that we're doing that involved crime movies, we're going to interplay them in between everything else.
So Victor J. Kemper, we celebrate you.
Awesome.
I declare this Victor J. Kemper Day.
It's not really.
No, he was born in April. So.
Okay, there you go. So Soundtrack Smashes. Yay. All right, now you can go ahead.
Well, there was some music in this movie.
There was music in this movie. And notably, the score is by John Morris. So tell us more about John Morris, Parry.
Well, first I'll comment that I think the score is fantastic. And what I love about it is that it pays homage to the mystery style of music, but it also is done so it has some sort of goofy synthesizer stuff in there that makes it fun as well. And he actually did a lot of comedy films, particularly with Mel Brooks. He composed the music for Blazing Saddles, for Young Frankenstein, Silent Movie, High Anxiety. So, and then The Elephant Man, which is extremely interesting in the History of the World Part 1. So a lot of Mel Brooks, and then some other things interspersed. The Woman in Red, Johnny Dangerously, Dirty Dancing, Spaceballs, and some other stuff.
Stuff.
And The Electric Grandmother.
You're hysterical.
So yeah, I mean, he did some really well-known films as well, but like I said, in particular with Mel Brooks, so I think he really had a handle on the spoof sound.
So, fun fact, the score was not released until La La Land released it in 2011 on CD. So you might want to go ahead and grab yourself one of those. Normally, you can get it for about $40 or $50 on CD. So that's pretty good. Then Mondo came out with variants of the vinyl in different colors.
Mm-hmm.
All to match.
Oh, don't I know.
There's a black vinyl, right? So really, technically, I guess to me, that's Wadsworth's vinyl in my brain. Then there's white, scarlet, so red, Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Mr. Green, Mrs. Peacock is blue, like her piece. And there are only 250 copies made of each. And so that's much harder to collect. As a collector, I know. And
having them all,
that was years of like tracking things down. And then here's a problem, okay? Because they all have the same exterior. So people are listing things like on Discogs and they're not really recognizing where they're listing it at. So like people would send the wrong ones and then I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And truthfully, the hardest one for me to get was Miss Scarlet. That was like the hardest one, and Mrs. White. And I feel like it's just because their characters are beloved so much. So yeah, definitely, I would say try to grab those if you can. If you're a Clue lover, they're sort of a must. They were originally sold for $28. They're now ranging anywhere from $50 to $100 plus shipping. So if you see those, you better snag those. Those are awesome.
Yeah, and if they've got a good signature on them, they're going to be much more.
Yes, agreed. People better not die off before I can get there.
Can get them all.
Can get there. So in the midst of cultural impact, there's actually quite a bit. There are chapter books regarding Clue.
With the fourth ending included.
No. Rewind. There was a storybook.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. You're confusing one
storybook
thing with the other.
Chapter book?
Yes, a chapter book is what a child reads.
Yes, Miss Joelle.
Exactly. Go fuck yourself. And then the storybook was also geared towards children as well, which did include the fourth ending.
Yes, which is crazy, apparently.
Right.
The fourth ending, not that it
Yes.
was included. I have read what the fourth ending is, and it sounds kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's basically that Wadsworth killed everybody by poisoning the champagne.
Well, he poisoned them, but then as he's explaining to the police what happened, he goes out the door, locks them all in, drives away, but the dog that was guarding the greenhouse in the back is actually in the car with him, so we guess that he's been killed. And the reason he does it is because he was never the perfect anything, so he wants to commit the perfect murder. But the assumption Red Rum is that they all get out because they go out through the greenhouse and that they find the antidote and survive. And so, but apparently they just felt like it just did not work.
It does not work.
And cut it. But
yeah. So it's also in the novelization by Michael McDowell, which is paperback. And if you can find that paperback's probably like $100 to $150. So that paperback is also something you should be looking for because there are just not that many out there. They're pretty rare at this point. In terms of other cultural impact and things, there were kids chapter books that were Clue as well. Past number 4 is also very hard to find. So if you do have the whole collection or part of the, call me. Call me, drop me an email. Thanks. After number 4 or number 6, like you really need to, you need to be saving those. Parry's already alluded to the alleged, much to my freaking chagrin, they're going to fuck up this movie and it's going to make me so pissed off. I can't. I mean, I have faith in Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
And it's the writers of Deadpool, too.
Oh, no. I have... Let me just rephrase myself right now. Unless you're doing the exact movie in similar style, I don't want it. I don't want you to ad-lib shit. I don't want you to make different jokes. I don't want you to revamp the whole script because the whole script does not need to be revamped. This is one of those times where I feel like you're going to do more damage and people are going to hate you for it than they did people hating Solo. Like, all Tim Curry fans will freaking revolt. You think Star Wars has a freaking following? Try Rocky Horror and try Clue. Like, all Tim Curry fans are going to revolt. You don't want to mess with the gothic kids. You just don't.
But it's going to be a zany international caper.
Go fuck yourself. I can't. It makes me so sad. I'm like, why can't we just do original things? Just original things.
Ah, who wants that?
I mean...
all the original things ran out in the 80s. We don't have a choice but to remake them, but we're remaking them better because they're grosser.
Can we not talk about Murder in the Orient Express, the new re-release? I tried to watch it about 3 times, of course, because I love murder mysteries, and I can't get through scene 1. I can't get through the first 10 minutes. And I love all mysteries, anything crime-related. I dig it. I dig it all.
Now, what we haven't seen, speaking of Curry, is the new version of It. We haven't seen that yet.
No.
So I don't know what the new Pennywise is
Okay,
like.
but Pennywise is different than freaking Wadsworth. It just is different.
They all flow down here.
One is a scary ass character and one is like eccentricity. And you need the personality and Clue in general. You need the one-liners and you need everyone to have those one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and only Deadpool really has those one-liners. Not everyone surrounding. So, you know, while I like you, Ryan Reynolds, you're going to make me dislike you. And in fact, I'm pretty sure he's probably having a difficult time of this because it was announced at the beginning of 2018 and we still haven't heard shit yet.
Well, it was first announced in like 2012 or something.
No, there was 2012, and then I think they did a shitty remake, or somebody did something, and it was not okay.
You said there was like some kind of kid remake.
Yeah, there's like some
cheap
preteen bullshit. Okay, good for them. And then more recently too, the play adaptation of Clue was released, and people were able to go ahead and actually do that as well and put on those productions.
There was a musical at one point.
Yeah.
I get sentimental, it was ruled accidental.
Exactly, that too. But the play one was like officially released in like 2016 or something.
What do you mean, a movie of the play?
No. Like they're putting on a play. Sort of like Noises Off.
Oh, okay.
Is a play and a movie.
So like a Broadway?
Yeah,
play?
like right, but it's not on Broadway.
It's not a musical.
No.
Okay.
No. So then they did that. And really what Clue does so well, truthfully, is this idea of a whodunit.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, here's just where my theory comes in, and here's, I guess, part of the crime movie podcast connection. So defense lawyers have been doing endings 1, 2, and 3 their entire time. And I want to tell you even more so. So the idea is beyond a reasonable doubt within a criminal trial. Well, when you can show that other people could have possibly killed or committed the crime, you really now have that shadow of a doubt. You know, the glove fits, you must acquit, like it couldn't be him possibly. So having these other alternative endings, I really feel has been a different directive than that defense attorneys have gone to. I mean, it's sort of Perry Mason-esque-ish. And I think one of the lines even in Clue is, "Who are you, Perry Mason?" Right? Miss Scarlett says it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Perry Mason-ish, but nowhere do you ever see this truly come into play so much as this actual movie, where they're literally walking you through the steps of other killers committing the act and the possibility of them committing the act.
Yeah.
So to me, that is the big, you know, how does this really relate, or how has this possibly influenced real life? I think that is the biggest one, is showing really how it can be done, almost even in a closing statement, right?
Right.
Literally trying to just explain it once you've put your case out very well. So that idea of the whodunit, you know, and casting, creating reasonable doubt, I think that's what you get here.
I think that maybe they should cross it over with Law and Order, and you know, then we could have a whole intro when someone done it, but you don't know who done it. Law and Order Special Clue Unit.
Psych also, for their 100th episode, called it 100 Clues. Martin Mull, Christopher Lloyd, and Leslie Ann Warren, see how I ignored you, were the suspects in a series of murders at a mansion. The show also featured multiple endings and was dedicated to the memory of Madeline Kahn, who passed away to cancer in 1999. Apparently, Psych creator Steve Franks, long life Clue fan.
Yes.
And
that show shows it in many ways. The style of comedy, the plot lines.
And so the interesting part is that he ran it by the crowd. I think it was like 4,600 people at 2011's Comic-Con in San Francisco, or San Diego, sorry. And they're like, oh, you know, he's like, let me run it by them, because really, are any of these people going to know Clue? You know, because everybody just thought it was this big bomb and no one really knows it. And like the room erupted. And so he's like, all right, we got to do it. And so they did. And they were able to go ahead and get those 3 on that episode, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, you know, when we met Tim Curry, I feel like most people came dressed in Rocky Horror, but there were Clue people interspersed throughout. I think you and I had the most detailed costumes.
Yes.
And he did, as he said, I love your hat.
No, I love your veil.
Veil, that's what it was.
Yeah. And I about died.
Yes.
I pretty much almost about passed out.
Hey, Walter, get off your brother. Walter!
Stop regulating. Walter!
One cat likes to hold down the other by the scruff of the neck and just lay on top of him if he feels like he's not getting his appropriate amount of attention. So,
also there is a documentary regarding Clue. Okay, here's the thing. I can find bits of it on YouTube, and we'll go ahead and do the links for them. But it's literally called Clue the Movie Documentary Asks Whodunit. And they have interviews with Leslie Ann Warren, and they have interviews with Jonathan Lynn, and they have interviews with, I want to tell you, bear with me. They have interviews too with, I think Michael McKean is in there as well. So I'm not sure how extensive this was happening. I mean, it said the release date was 2018, but I can't find the whole thing. So this is who you need to contact. And we'll put it on there too. His name is Jeff Smith, and you can go to his YouTube channel, and we'll post that on there. And there are small bits on the documentary on there and trailers and pieces like that. But help. Like, I really want to go ahead and see the whole movie. So, Jeff Smith, if by chance you're listening to podcasts regarding Clue, help. We need your help. I want to see it. Please send it to us. Please send us the link.
yes, or
if you know where the link are, Clue fans, please send it to us.
Or, since we have so many copies of Clue here, the Bob's Burgers Clue and the Golden Girls Clue and the VHS video copies
That's
of
right,
Clue.
the mystery detectives. They're also puzzles. Did you know that?
We might be willing to, make a trade for this documentary of a, oh, no, sorry.
Were you, really? I don't want to trade your shit.
Who traded it?
No one traded it. They would die. Anyway, there's those pieces, and then
when when we met Tim Curry, what I did not realize, I did not know he was terrified of clowns, and I'm really glad I didn't dress up as Pennywise.
People did though.
Well, and apparently he has severe. Is it calrophobia? Calrophobia, which is the fear of clowns. When he did Pennywise, there were no reflective surfaces, and they almost had to fire a makeup person because she was holding one of the mirrors when he could see himself in this handheld mirror. Geez. So apparently he is deathly afraid. So I don't know how they allowed people dressed as Pennywise to go in and get a picture with him.
I don't know.
But I had no idea about this.
That's messed up. Also, FYI, there was basically an exhibit of Clue art.
What?
At Gallery 1988 in LA. We're going to put that site up and that link for you just so you can see some of the art that was created. And it was actually affordable. There are still pieces available for like $25-$30 of these screen printed posters or these posters. So some of them. Yeah. And then, of course, TV Tropes, the TV Trope site, they always come through. And one of the best things that they have on there as a trope is literally, the caption is, all men are perverts. And then they have examples of basically scenes and dialogues that are great there.
Oh, all the men in this are the worst.
Yeah. Oh, wait, we never picked favorite songs for Soundtrack Smashes.
Original soundtrack score?
Really?
Like the theme from Clue?
Yeah, it is the theme for Clue. It is literally the first roughly 3 minutes when everyone is arriving, and it really just sets the scene, and it really sets the whole tone for the entire movie.
Yay, Morris.
Yay, John Morris. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, I just wanted to, in talking about...
Oh, I lied. I have one more thing.
Go for it.
They also made drinking games regarding Clue. We're going to link those sites too. And they used to have shadow casts of this at the Alamo Draft House. So I thought multiple Alamo Draft Houses. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. And they still sometimes do shadow casts.
Well, since this is going to be a part of our crime series, I do have to say, though, that was some of the worst police work I've ever seen. The cop was not. He was the only thing not well written, I guess. He doesn't seem to really be good at solving cases or picking up on things that are going on in the room. So I'm not sure if we're talking policing, if we would use this as an example of good detective work.
Really?
Yeah, the
cop was crooked too. Technically, there's a lot going on. Remember, he was taking bribes.
Right,
selling secrets.
So yeah, I guess if he had been called out there, then he wasn't really suspicious. Well, I think he would be suspicious of their odd behavior, and he even says so on the phone. And then he's not surprised enough when Hoover is on the phone.
That's right, or when he sees any of the other shenanigans going on.
Yes. Yeah, he's the only character in there that seems to just let everything pass right by him without reacting to it very much. And it's written for the convenience of that, but if we're talking about police work, maybe he's...
Well, there's also a difference between being a patrol officer and being a detective.
Very true.
And, you're a rookie, and you might not necessarily know everything versus being a detective. So
it's the baldest rookie out there.
Stop. The oldest rookie besides
Nathan Fillion.
All right, on the Rookie. TV show The Rookie. So that could be it.
Not to be confused with Charlie Sheen in The Rookie. Isn't it Sheen and what's his name? Dirty hairy guy.
Dirty hairy guy, really? Clint Eastwood, really? Dirty hairy guy. That's what Clint Eastwood has been reduced to?
Yes, dirty hairy guy is empty chair guy.
Empty chair guy. Okay, on that note, on that wonderfully political note, we're going to end this because there's so much more that we could actually get political about, but I think that we shouldn't.
Not with Clue, no.
No. Anything else that you have to add?
Only that I think it is a terribly underrated film and that it is certainly worth the watch and repeated viewings because, again, the comedy that is going on is happening simultaneously in many different parts of a shot. And so it's interesting to rewatch and focus on some of the different things that people are doing or how they're reacting, or just little things like Madeline Kahn's half scream as they're doing the reenactment. Yes.
You're welcome.
Or watching Tim Curry imitate Michael McKean for Mr. Green, just doing a perfect...
I had to slap her. Sorry. Yes. Wow, it's pretty bad. Okay.
So yeah, it is definitely a watch.
Right. So like we said, this is part of a secondary subset of You Haven't Seen What on our podcast, but the crime edition, the crime files. So the reason for this actually is that I, along with 3 other folks, have put out a crime movie database, literally cataloging crime movies in one place from 1970 to 2014. And it's any movies that have been filmed within the United States that are in English and that are not necessarily a documentary. So I think, if you want to see documentary pieces or that there's that. But what we hope is that having this database will really help teachers utilize movies as a source and films as a source in their classrooms. Not just in crime and media classes, but in anything from like a terrorism class or, a policing class, and really, and even truthfully, organized crime classes or about organized crime or transnational crime. Because really, all of these movies like The Godfather and Scarface and Training Day, Bad Boys, all of these movies and all of these archetypes really hold a place within society, really holds a deep personal connection to a lot of different people. Like Hannibal Lecter is probably the most infamous made-up serial killer of all time, truthfully. And we take from that and we take these lessons from that as a society, and then we apply them to what we think the criminal justice system should look like. A prime example is the TV show CSI, and now there's a CSI effect, Like, we expect DNA to just be easily and readily available.
Show us the fibers.
Show us the fibers, the jury shouts. Exactly. You should have fibers. You should have fingerprints. You should have blood. You should have all of these things. And the expectation is being raised within the courtroom. So understanding how media really influences and impacts those things is extremely important. It's also really fun to go ahead and teach these lessons this way. Even if you wanted to talk about pop culture and Scarface, that could be a class all by itself, regarding just the influences of Scarface on mafia, on the drug selling game, never get high on your own supply. Like, there are so many different connections.
I'm sure it has been a class. I'd put money on it.
I don't think so. It might have been a class lesson, but I don't know that it's been a class.
An entire class? Oh.
It would be amazing. Let's just have that. I would love to create that lesson plan. I'll put that out there right now.
Say hello to my little class.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no. But also, so we're going to have the information regarding, your basic information, a very short synopsis of everything. It will be searchable. And then it also will have key terms and archetypes within. So if you're looking for a cop buddy drama, if you're looking for mafia movies or gangster movies, if you're looking for anything relating to police corruption, if you're looking for trial movies, it's going to have all of those things listed, as much as we possibly can get done. And hopefully it's done by the time we release this, and it should be. So we'll have that information up on our blog as well, and we'll let you all know through social media and all of those pieces. So that's why it's going to be extremely important, and here's the shameless self-promo, to please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, because we are doing more. And this should be the first. We're going to do a big drop on this release date. So we're talking Clue right now. Hopefully we can piece them all together for you, and it'll be a great big explosion commencing and coming together as perfectly as Clue in the form of a movie database. And we should be hopefully filming a live or recording a live podcast at the same time too, while this is all happening. So yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
The hell you say.
I'm just saying.
Quoting Shawshank.
I'm just saying. So make sure you check out our website, youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com. Make sure you check out the movie database. So all you crime movie lovers, you can go ahead and be like, oh, I've seen this movie. I've seen that movie. I haven't seen this movie. And you can go ahead and discover a new classic for you. If you haven't seen Clue, do yourself a favor. You should watch it and then rewatch it and then rewatch it about 10 more times so that you can make up for the time that you've lost in your life not having this movie.
And then you'll see if 2 + 1 + 1 + 2
no,
actually
it's 1 + 2 + 2 + 1. No, it's 1 + 2 + 1 + 1. No. Even if it was what you just said, it's 1 + 1 + 2 + 1. Not 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
You know I intentionally did it wrong just so that you could do it right.
You're an asshole. Fucking gaslighter. So check out our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at You Haven't Seen What Movie. And thanks for listening and going on this crazy rampage as I fangirl out to Clue, and Parry backs me up wonderfully. Like the great supportive husband he should be, because this is the birthday movie you really needed.
Well, you supported me and carried the episode when I fell apart during UHF, which will be discussed in a different podcast as you're carrying me as I melted down. But yes, so it's the least I can do.
Thanks. I did not melt down for Clue. Hey, I had a lot of information. I got it in there pretty quick. It's not a 2-hour episode. Yay. That's all I have to say about that, because I could really go for 2 hours. Oh, and we're going to be putting up those links on the blog post regarding the tropes and the scenes and the documentary and the art gallery exhibits. There's going to be so much to see on the website. You're really missing out for this one if you don't go and check it out. You haven't seen whatmovie.com. That's it. So remember,
be kind.
Rewind.
Bye. So, did you know that Princess Diana was a really big fan of Rocky Horror? And she told Tim Curry, thank you for completing my education when she met him.
Education what?
I don't know. That's what
I know I always like Princess Diana.
I'm like, what was she into that she got an education from Rocky Horror?
I mean,
damn it, Janet.
I'm just saying, she divorced the white man. She needed a little bit more flavor in her life.
Flames on the side of my face